attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state? Can you give us a question?
Don't be.
Can you
no,
give
I'm
us a
not gonna give you
question?
I'm not going to give you a
can
question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. When you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people.
Joining me now, Tim Graham and Nicholas Fondacaro, both of them with the wonderful Media Research Center. I love what you guys do, Newsbusters. All right, fellas. First, Tim, let's start with you. Trump, did he simply expose that we have a hostile press, or did he turn them hostile? And I don't mean that as being his fault. Did he cause these people to have some sort of a mental breakdown? Because it's very clear we don't have a bias problem. We have a hostile media.
Well, I was in the White House press corps for a couple of years at the beginning of George W. Bush. They were hostile then, too. The difference between Bush and Trump was that Trump gave them their hostility right back at them. You know, most Republicans have tried really hard to treat the media as, well, you are the moderators of our discourse. And Trump was just not having that. And in part because when somebody like Jim Acosta is putting on a yelling show, he deserves to be put in his place.
Nicholas, here's what I worry about. It's always been my concern. I'm not worried about you or Tim or me or frankly anybody watching this right now, but I am worried about the millions and millions and millions of Americans who aren't, the low infos. I'm not calling them dumb, just low info people. When ABC, CBS, NBC, I mean, you guys do this research all the time, when they are so one-sided, how much does it work on the person who just has 10 minutes at the end of the day to watch NBC Nightly News before he goes to sleep?
Exactly. It's so much that the networks themselves, they take advantage of the fact that they know most of America is busy trying to live day to day, and that they don't want this negativity there. And they try to, that's why they want to control the narrative a lot, is because they know that they only have like that 10-minute window even before the first break. So because a lot of people will probably just watch it just before that first commercial break, and they try to pack in all this negativity. And we saw this explosion in the Trump years of this political cycle news on the evening networks, because they used to not do it as much. It used to just be this thing that would pop up occasionally, do a lot of human interest pieces. But there was this overwhelming sense of doom and gloom. The train is about to come off the rails under the Trump years, that they needed to keep people in this sense of panic at all points in time.
Tim, how do they see themselves? And I realize that's pretty all-encompassing. The media makes up a lot of different people. Everybody has different biases and different priorities in life. But they did come off so much during the Trump era as if they saw themselves as the vanguard protecting the nation. But are they really that? Do they really view themselves that way? Or are they just biased Democrats acting like they're doing this for our own good?
Well, we used to have this debate a long time ago. Do they know they're biased? I think it's quite obvious, especially in the Trump era. They knew exactly what they were doing. And yes, they did have that sort of Brian Stelter boastiness about how we are the protectors of democracy. But, you know, in reality, they really don't want the conservatives or the Republicans to have much to say. They really kind of want to shout them down. So I think that the first thing we've always insisted is that we, too, are democracy. When we criticize the media, that's democracy, too. They don't seem to think that that should belong.
Yeah. One thing that really, it's one of the many that really brought it home was the Hunter Biden stuff. Here's a little montage you may recognize.
There's no evidence that Hunter Biden has done anything wrong.
President Trump has falsely accused your son of doing something wrong while serving on a company board in Ukraine. I want to point out there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either one of you.
We have looked, lots of outlets have looked.
Hunter Biden did nothing wrong. Vice President Biden did nothing wrong. And every single media outlet has said that there's no there to these allegations, lies, and smears.
Nicholas, the question is, how damaging is things like that to the entire country? I'm not worried about the media's credibility. Screw the media. But I don't have the ability. I'm a normal citizen. I don't have the ability to go through Hunter Biden's laptop and figure out what's what. I can't be my own institutions. I need institutions that can bring me information I can't obtain on my own. If the American media is that, if they're just a cover, or if they're just running cover for the other side, how much does this hurt our country? Because that's really the point of the show tonight.
It hurts our country tremendously. And we've seen it, how they do this to affect the outcomes of elections. Like we here at the Media Research Center, we commissioned a poll, a study after the 2020 election, and we discovered that about 45% of Biden voters had not heard of the Hunter Biden story and were unaware of it. And then we found out that about 9% of them would have changed their voting patterns if they had learned about this. So that's either they would have voted for somebody else or they would have just not voted. And that it could be a small percentage, but in very close states, it could be the deciding factor of who gets electoral votes.
Tim, one of the things I think people lose sight of when they talk about the media and bias and liberal and left-leaning or whatever word they want to put on it, they lose sight of the fact that the way the media conducts themselves actually kills people in this country. It does. How they conducted themselves. Well, I mean, here's the aftermath of the George Floyd death.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
That ain't a riot, what we're seeing right now in Minneapolis.
I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism, which is what they were there fighting. Listen, there's, no organization is perfect. There was some violence.
Any reasonable person would say we shouldn't be destroying other people's property, but these are not reasonable times.
But thank goodness for the looters, man.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Tim, I remember them burning down Ferguson, Missouri. I remember them burning down many places across the country. Lives destroyed, lives lost. What they do has real consequences. Do you think any of these sociopaths ever consider that when they look in the mirror?
I think that what we see here, you can just think of January 6th and you just see the dramatic difference. And that is that somehow rioting was good then. Rioting was terrible at the Capitol, and it was. But here, yes, people died in Portland. People die in these riots. And no, I don't think that they really consider themselves responsible for it. And they glamorize it by saying it's a racial reckoning. We even had NPR support a book called In Defense of Looting. That's who we've got.
Tim, Nicholas, thank you both. I appreciate you.